Good morning. It's Saturday morning, March 5th, 2016. This is Ron Brown. I want to take a look at a couple of things today after a strong finish for the market during this last week. And I get a lot of questions about how do we use VPA, and do I have to wait for a stock to build a base, and so on and so forth. And yes, in the traditional way of thinking, if you want to think that way, you can wait until a stock makes a move and then rebases or reaccumulates using Wyckoff terminology, and then let it go. But when we have a market that's had a sharp turnaround like we did recently, you're really missing the boat. And this is something I've had to learn over time too, because back in the 90s we were all indoctrinated to buy high to go higher, and it worked for a decade or nearly a decade. But if you wait for that to happen, you're going to miss out on some huge moves. And I've been posting some examples on the board. I guess X was the greatest example that I put up. And let me just hit my space bar and I'll type X in, and it takes me to US Steel. And this is a chart that I've put together, and I have added some moving averages to this chart. I'll just make this full screen. This is something I'm experimenting with. I'm using a 9, 18, and 50-day exponential moving average just to give me an idea of when a stock is trending. And if I use this, you can see that the 9 and 18 went up through the 50 right at this point, just as it started trending up. It works part of the time. Part of the time it doesn't work, like any other indicator. But notice here that it went short clear back up here. By the way, you don't have this yet. If you want to add the 9, 18, and 50-day exponential moving averages, you can certainly do it on your own. Eventually you'll get it when I put my VPA update up there for everyone. Now let's take a look at X. Yes, it's in a downtrend. What has happened here? I'll put a highlighter on here, and I'll just use yellow. It kept making a series of lower highs and lower lows. Right here we had a double top, came down, then it started finding support with all these VPA signals. It did go a little bit lower, but during this time period, what is happening here? Well, this is what's called building a cause in Wyckofian terms, because it's building a base, but you're not waiting for this stock to show great earnings growth, great relative strength, and so on. What you're seeing is an exchange of shares between those who still want out and those who are accumulating. Now notice all of the green dots in here interspersed with, well, those are not red dots, they're actually tests for supplies. There's a few yellow triangles here. This was a good signal that it was going to go down a little more. High volume down bar after an up move, and you can see that. You start getting a feel for what these candles do, or what the bars do, when used in conjunction with these flags. These flags are simply, I wanted an arrow, I'm sorry about that. These flags are simply an alert, is what I'm calling them, to what has happened with either a single candle or in conjunction with a prior day's candle. And you'll get that information up here. Let me go back to this, and I'll point this out. I'll make this an arrow. I'll make it red so it stands out. I didn't get that turned on. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll do it one more time. High volume down bar after an up move on high volume indicates weakness. So here's your up move. Looks like it's going to go, and then we get a reversal. Everybody wants in, it gaps up, looks like it's reversing, but the trend is still down based upon the moving averages, and also it did not get past this resistance area here, so it goes back down. So it goes back into this cause building phase. I'm going to bring this highlighter back up. I'll just use red this time. And then as we get over here, get rid of this and put a line in here. Finally, here is a low. It breaks past resistance here. Here is a higher low. Notice that this low here is higher than this low here. And then we get a little pullback, a little cup here, and then it's basing sideways. Here was an effort to rise, and all this time it is starting to build higher lows and finally a higher high on that breakout on effort to rise. Now, if you wait for a stock like this to start producing earnings, you're going to miss out on some of the biggest moves that are out there. Now, these stocks may not go very far, but just take a look over here. I'm going to change this to an arrow. This thing, USS Steel, is already up 111.1% from its 52-week low. It doesn't look like it because these numbers are small, but when it was up here yesterday before it fell back, and you can see the profit taking coming in, because here was an exchange from the strong hands to the weak hands. Well, I'm sorry, let me reverse that. These are strong hands here, and then the big gains have been made, so they're starting to sell it to the weak hands. Why is this weak? Because of this long upper wick. That tells us that there is a transfer from strength to weakness. This is a very, very weak candle. Now the strong candles are down here as it's coming out of this base or building this little cup here. This is strength. Strength actually comes in at the bottom. It doesn't come in at the top. I know that's hard to conceive of, but if you listen to people who have traded this way for years, for example, Tom Williams, he says that strength comes in, especially on days where there are tests. This is where the strength is coming in, where the accumulation is going on. Well, there is base building or building a cause. And what I really want to emphasize here is that this stock did not move up by itself. Look at this group line. It's kind of faint and hard to see. Here's the group down here, but look where the group started making higher lows and higher highs. This follows the group, and when you have a market like we've had recently, you can't wait forever to jump on these stocks, or you'll never make any money, or maybe you'll make some money, but the risk increases the further this goes up. Now let me bring up the fundamentals window, and you can see what I mean about waiting for earnings. Okay, we have a stock that's up over 100% from its 52-week lows, and these are billions of dollars in revenue, and notice how they've been declining. The earnings have been declining, but I'm sure that any one of us would take half of that move of 100% off of the low. What are you waiting for if the group is starting to move? Now in the past, I will admit, for years, I would never touch a stock like this. It's what we've referred to as bottom fishing. But if you start looking at it and the component parts of the group, the building the cause, the VPA signals, you can get into these stocks and make a quick buck. Now I certainly wouldn't be buying it here because I think that it's probably run its course for a while. Look at all these pocket pivots in a row here. several blue pocket pivots here, either 5 or 10 day. And if you don't want to take these signals, the VPA signals, you can certainly, if you want a screener, put these moving averages on your chart, and that'll give you more confidence that the trend has changed from down, clear back up here, to up. Now this steel group has been signaling strength for quite some time. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change to the industry group, and then I'll go into the warehouse, and let's just take a look at the ranking module. This is a 6-week module, and you can see that there are several steel stocks that have outperformed U.S. Steel over that time period. I'm going to go down to the index itself, and you can see what this index looks like. We saw it in the other chart. It's represented by the gray line. You can see when I put a crosser on here, the force 2 and the force 13 both went positive. Clear back here, and that date is down here in the corner on 128. And if I go to my ranking module and go up to the industries, all of the industries, here are the steel producers. This is on 6 weeks. I'm going to change it to E and slow, which is 6 months, and it shows the last, on the chart it'll show it's weighted 70% is on the most recent 3 months and 30% on the other. Now you can see that it is number 9 at this point. So the move has happened more recently, as we saw with U.S. Steel. So let's go in here, do a percent change of 2 weeks, and over that time period, if I change to raw relative strength, this group as a whole is up 15%, 14.94%. And I'll bring this up. So that's just the last 2 weeks. Let's go to this point right here. That would be 120. I'll change this to a weekly so we can get a better feel for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's go back 6 weeks. That's where I was originally. And let's see where steel is based upon the turn in the market. The group itself is up 26.747% over a 6-week period. It's near the top of the list. Precious metals and mining, steel raw materials, base metals, and then steel producers. I paused the video and I'm going to go to a different chart. You'll find this chart under the VPA charts, under HGSI volume price analysis, and it is number 13. I'm going to go to the chart just above here, this one right here. So let's click on that, and I'll zoom out. Well, I can use my zoom keys now that Matt put in for me. Alternate 2 will take me here, and the reason I want this chart is I wanted to see when the steel producers were starting to show accumulation, when we were getting some signals and so on, and you can see that there are multiple effort to rise signals in this group before it really took off here the past few days. I mean, it's been building higher. There's the low. That could be considered a higher high, and then it formed another higher high. It held here on this double bottom and then took off. But the way I use this chart is I want a visual comparison to how this group is doing compared to the NASDAQ, which is this chart up here, and the S&P, and this is the SPX and the NASDAQ represented by these two lines. So, well, there was another dip down in the major indexes, a shakeout before the market started going up. Notice that this steel group was outperforming both of these indexes. Now you have to look for this. You have to spend time looking. These stocks are not, or in groups, are not just going to pop up, but it's certainly worth the effort if you can catch them. Now notice all of these pocket pivots. This crescendo, this volume crescendo, going up here as new money is starting to flow into this group, and then yesterday it looks like this selling may, or it looks like it's being passed from strong hands to weak hands. This is what we're seeing in the equal dollar weighted index. Now I'm going to change to the industry group, go to the warehouse view, and I'm sorted on this already. Look at all of these stocks that are showing the same transfer of ownership. The strong hands selling into weak hands. Now, yesterday during the day, early, X was up 16-17%, I believe, at one time, and look what happened to it. It closed well down into its range. Some short covering or traders paid as high as about 14.65. It closed down near 13. Well, here, look down in the corner here. The open was 12.49. The high was 14.54. The close was 12.25, and it had a huge sell-off. So that's going from strong to weak in one day. The smart money was buying down here. The group was starting to move up, and then we had this big rush up, and I wouldn't touch these steel stocks now. They've had a huge run, and the fundamentals are terrible. This is a very weak chart. These were strong charts because they were going up on heavy volume. They closed near their high of the day. But this is where the accumulation was starting to take place back here. This was a strong signal, and then a pullback, but it didn't pull back all that far. The strength is down here. This is weakness. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but when you think of it in terms of smart money selling into the hands of traders that are just getting in, it makes a lot more sense. If you were just looking at the stock quotes in the newspaper and you see, geez, this was up 5.10% today, you'd say that's really strong. I'm going to go out and buy some of that on Monday. But then if you know anything about VSA or VPA, which are one and the same, you come in here and you look at these charts. There are a couple of warnings here, possible buying climaxes, and then we actually had the transfer from strong to weak. You wouldn't touch this stock at this point. You'd be more inclined to start looking down here. Next, I'm going to look at a couple of stocks that I traded this week. Made money on both of them, and I think actually the trades started last week, and I traded them with debit spreads, limited risk trades. I put sell orders in when I achieved close to 50% profit on the trade. But let me find the chart that I want to use here. Oh, this one will probably do. This is my accumulation chart. And by the way, this accumulation thing that I came up with for the last newsletter and roundtable, it seems to be working really well. Okay, I'm going to start with MXL. And I'll give you a longer look at it. Get rid of this. You can see that extremely choppy. The group is choppy, the stock is choppy, but let's look at the weekly chart. by the way, if you're using VPA, you should always start looking at the weekly charts too, just because it gives you a better perspective of support and resistance. And if I put my crosshair on here, notice that this former resistance line was the support line, and it traded down through here, formed a doji, and then it started going up. You can see how loose it was though during these weeks, because on this weekly chart, here's a transfer of ownership, here's another one, and then finally we got a real bullish signal, or I got a real bullish signal this week. Now I'm going back to the daily, and I saw this long tail, and then I saw this too, and then I started buying it, or I bought it here, bought a debit spread here on this effort to rise. The group was moving up, and it tested. I didn't think it was going to go. Then it went again. There were a lot of false starts, and I had an order in to sell it when I achieved 50% profit on the trade, and it got filled yesterday as it shot up here. And notice that there is another one of these candles, the transfer of ownership, which means it's going from the strong hands through here being sold to the weak hands, and look where it happened. Look to your left over here. It couldn't penetrate through this resistance. This is now a very weak candle on heavy volume. I want to point out all of these pocket pivots down here as money started flowing in here. But this stock may have made its run, and I was probably lucky to get filled. We'll see on Monday what happens. Now the other stock is TRGP. Now I believe I put something up, a chart on that, and I'm going to zoom in on this. Use your zoom keys, the alternate 1 through alternate 5. They're very fast to use. I pointed out that I got into this stock right here. We had this stopping volume, and then when it broke past there, that's when my spread got filled, and it took off yesterday. I had the profit in. I had more contracts on this, so I didn't go for the full 50% profit. I ended up making about 45 on it, but I'll take that any day in a matter of a few days. The problem with the stock like this, as I found out when I got in that into the spread, it wasn't that active, and the spreads varied all over the place. So I just put the order in. If you try to put the order in when you see that it may get filled, you probably never get filled. So I just put it in and I left it in, and fortunately I got filled on this one too. Why do I say that? Because there's no signal here, but this is a spinning top. You can see that there was selling up at this point, and the wick is pretty large, and the tail is also pretty large. It's almost a doji. I'm going to back out of this a little bit and take a look at this. And why did I even get interested in the stock? Why? Because I saw this group, these stocks starting to come up, and these stocks and groups moving to the upside, a beaten down group obviously, and I just thought it's worth a try because it's starting to move up sharply. Zoom back in and notice that, get rid of that. Here is the low. Well, here's the low over here. This is a slightly higher low here. Resistance was across here. I got it about when it broke past resistance. Here was a higher low. Here the group was moving up. It was building somewhat of a cause here. There were multiple pocket pivots, and it just looked like the odds were in my favor. And yes, I was maybe a little bit lucky here. We'll see what goes on with this market. But my point in showing you these stocks is that you don't have to wait for a high relative strength stock with great earnings. If you do, you'll never make any money when the market goes through periods like we just went through. And actually, I think I discovered this stock with the accumulation screen. Look how accumulation was coming into it. Then we had a distribution screen, but then accumulation started coming back into it. And I'm going to draw this down here, and that is on this accumulation bar. That's where that was another confirming factor. I think it goes right next to this one right here, but I got in on that day, and accumulation was occurring. It was occurring back here too before the distribution lines, as you can see. But this screen, the accumulation screen, seems to work very well. And let me show you where you can find it in case you don't know. It's under the warehouse views, and it's folder number 12. I just put this in this last month, and I'm using it more and more. What it does is it catches stocks as they're moving from D distribution to C accumulation, all the way up to through B and A accumulation, with the accumulation direction going up along with the velocity. Now I want to do one more thing. This video is getting a little bit long, but I had a question from Stephen Cole, so I might as well address it right here. This is the stock he was asking about, PANW. Finally got it to come up, and Stephen's questions were, here's comments where you like higher RS stocks. I like high RS stocks in a strong market, sure, because it's been proven that high RS stocks under the right conditions can keep going, but none of these stocks I've been looking at are high RS stocks. Clicked on the wrong thing here. In fact, this has a relative strength of 56. Now, our relative strength rankings in HGSI are based upon a year, and 40% of that weighting goes to the last quarter. So it's poor. The group is poor. The group rank is poor, but notice the group is going up. I'm looking more and more at group direction rather than group rank, because that's much more important. That's how you catch these stocks that are starting to move. Now look at these numbers up here. Now if you look at the IBD numbers, they're going to be totally different than these. That's because our data supplier, which is Bar Chart and Zacks, they use GAAP earnings, which are generally accepted accounting principle earnings. They don't eliminate stuff from the earnings based upon one-time expenses and so on. These are the actual earnings. So, you know, I get real tired of hearing people question why are the earnings different from IBDs. Well, I'll take general accepted accounting principles anytime, but more and more I am paying attention to VPA signals and group movement, and I don't even care what this stuff up here is right now. If you get in a strong market, yes, it makes a difference. You certainly want to be on the leaders, but you don't want to miss out on stuff like this. Let me flip to another chart for AS. Here's the one I want. Look at this stock. It's already up 36% from its 52-week low. I mean, what are you waiting for? Go back to the accumulation chart, and you can see that this group started moving up back here. Now the accumulation on PANW bar did not show up until here. Why? Because this is a very strong move down. Well, let's just look at some of these signals here. Did this stock really build a base? No. But if you look at this VPA signal here, what is that? That is a selling climax. If you click on this, it's called stopping volume in HGSI, but it's a selling climax. How do I know? Because look at the volume here. There are negative pocket pivots. This stock traded down. A signal was generated. The group's still going down, but there are buyers coming in at this point. How do you know? Look at the tail. Then what happens the next day? We get a signal, transfer of ownership, which is the red dot, and strength seen returning after a downtrend. And the high volume adds to the strength. It's not as high as these two, but notice that the volume is much higher than the 50-day moving average on this chart. And then what happens? It moves up, we get a test. There's some selling that comes in because it gaps lower but closes near the high, and the volume is lighter than the prior day. So that's a low volume test. Then we shot up here, effort to rise. There was some profit taking, but look what happens here. Transfer of ownership. Why? Because it traded down, but buyers came in at the end of the day. You can tell that by the tail. And then we had an effort to rise, and then a buyable gap up, and we know the earnings are out of the way because they're up here, and it looks like it might hold here. Why do I say that? Because look at this candle right here. This is a transfer of ownership candle. Once again, the red circle. It gapped open. There was some profit taking, but it closed near or above the 50% mark. That's why this signal is generated. And then we have small bodies here. After this one here, it traded down the next day a little bit. Notice how volume fell off considerably. And then we had several days of white candles. Now, got a little problem here. The group's turning down a little bit, but what we get on Friday? We got a no supply sign of strength. Now let's take a look at this here. I'm going to use my highlighter. Well, I certainly don't want red. Let's see if yellow shows up here. Nope. Might have to use a different tool. Blue. Try the blue. Nothing works against that black background. Except white should work. I just want to draw this band right here. You can see that this was support through here before it fell through the ice. I guess you could use that terminology. Wyckoff's terminology. It broke through and it came down here. We had the selling climax, and now we're running into resistance in this area right here, but it is being accumulated. I'm going to change this to an arrow and point this out. 2 accumulation days here. It looks like it has a chance to go at this point. I would say this is all market dependent. Stephen asked me if this is a strong group line. It's been strong since the base here. It's turned up. Obviously, you can see right here was the end of it, and it's moving up. But the stock is trading in this resistance area. Now, Stephen also said that he had a pocket pivot on Thursday. I do not see a pocket pivot, and it would not be a pocket pivot. Here's Thursday, because during the past 5-day period, this was 5 and 10-day pocket pivots. This red line here is right here. The volume was higher than this volume on Thursday, and that's a 5-day window there. That's on the 4th day. It could not have been a pocket pivot according to my filter setup. Now you may want to check your charts, and if something's wrong, please let me know and I'll go in and check the filters. I just don't see it though. The last pocket pivot was right here. Even though this is a red bar, that's because the close is lower than the open. This is the red bar that I'm referring to here on this day when the stock closed down slightly, and that could not have been a pocket pivot. Okay, this is the way I look at this stock right now. It's an expensive stock. If it holds above the gap, and I'm going to exclude that portion of the wick down into here. If it holds above this low here, it has a chance to go higher. We got a test on Friday. No supply, a sign of strength. To test, well, no, it's not either a test. No supply means low volume. It did not close in the higher part of its range, but the volume was so low and the spread on this is so narrow that it is generating a no supply signal. So if it holds above this level right here, which is around the 143 level, it looks like it could go, but I'm going to qualify this. The market has to be strong. Anyway, this is not a buy recommendation by any means. I'm just looking at it through the eyes of VSA and the group strength. If the group continues up, we have a strong market. There's a good chance that it will go higher. This video has gotten much longer than I wanted it to, so I'm going to sign off now, and I hope you enjoyed this. I'm considering doing a VPA webinar, series of webinars, just strictly limited to VPA using HGSI, and I've had several people that say they're interested, so if I can get that together, I'll do that, because there's a tremendous amount of interest in VPA. You really have to look at the alerts to see what they're telling you, and then things will become much clearer to you, but it takes practice. You have to spend some time at it. You have to be diligent, or it just really will not help you as much as it could. Thank you for listening. Have a good week.